What if I told you that a nation under crippling sanctions, dismissed by Western powers as technologically backward, just unveiled an air superiority weapon so advanced it's forcing Pentagon strategists to rewrite their Middle Eastern war plans? What if this wasn't just another propaganda stunt, but a legitimate game changer that's already shifting the balance of power in one of the world's most volatile regions? In the next few minutes, you're going to discover why America's most senior military officials are losing sleep over something called the Iron Eagle, and why the Sky Hunter might be the most underestimated threat in modern aerial warfare. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. This isn't about what you think it is. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most significant and frankly disturbing developments in Middle Eastern military capability that's emerged in the last decade. Iran has just pulled back the curtain on what they're calling the Iron Eagle Sky Hunter, and the intelligence community is scrambling to understand exactly what they're dealing with. Now, before you click away thinking this is just another Iranian propaganda piece with poorly edited footage of outdated Soviet-era technology painted in new colors, I need you to understand something crucial. The data coming out of multiple intelligence sources, satellite imagery analysis, and leaked Pentagon briefings suggests this is fundamentally different from anything Iran has revealed before. Let's start with the context that makes this revelation so shocking. Iran has been operating under the most comprehensive sanctions regime in modern history for over 4 decades. Their air force has been described by Western analysts as a museum collection of pre-revolution American aircraft and outdated Russian exports that barely fly. The assumption has always been that Iran's aerial capability poses no serious threat to modern air forces. That assumption just got shattered. What makes the Iron Eagle so significant isn't just its existence, it's the timing, the capability level being demonstrated, and most importantly, what it reveals about Iran's actual indigenous military industrial capacity versus what we've been told to believe. Now, here's where things get interesting, and I promise you'll want to hear this before forming any conclusions. The Iron Eagle isn't being marketed as a fighter jet in the traditional sense. Intelligence reports suggest it's a hybrid combat system that combines unmanned aerial vehicle technology with electronic warfare capabilities and what appears to be artificial intelligence assisted targeting systems. Think about what that means for a moment. We're not talking about a country trying to build a knockoff F-16. We're talking about a fundamentally different approach to air superiority that sidesteps the traditional metrics we use to evaluate air power. And that's precisely what makes it so dangerous. The first public acknowledgement of the Iron Eagle program came from satellite imagery captured by commercial observation satellites over a known Iranian military research facility in early January. Analysts noticed unusual construction patterns and electromagnetic signatures that didn't match any known Iranian aircraft development program. Within weeks, Iranian state media released carefully curated footage showing what they claimed was a successful test flight of a revolutionary air combat system. Now, state media claims are one thing, but when you start seeing corroborating intelligence from Israeli, American, and European sources all pointing to the same conclusion, you have to pay attention. What they're all saying in carefully diplomatic language is that Iran has achieved a technological breakthrough that Western intelligence agencies didn't see coming. But let's talk about what the Iron Eagle actually does, because this is where the story gets truly fascinating. According to leaked technical assessments, the Sky Hunter designation refers to its primary mission profile: hunting and neutralizing enemy aircraft and unmanned systems using a combination of conventional and electronic attack methods. The system reportedly operates in swarms, meaning multiple units coordinate autonomously to overwhelm enemy defenses. Each unit carries a payload that includes both kinetic weapons and electronic warfare equipment capable of disrupting or even hijacking enemy aircraft systems. If even half of these capabilities are real, and intelligence suggests they are, this represents a paradigm shift in how air combat could unfold in the Middle East. Consider the strategic implications for just a moment, and this is critical to understanding why this matters beyond just military hardware enthusiasts. Israel has maintained uncontested air superiority over the region for decades. American forces operate with the assumption that they can establish air dominance within hours of any conflict initiation. The entire Western military strategy for the Middle East is built on the foundation of overwhelming aerial advantage. Now imagine a weapon system specifically designed to degrade that advantage through asymmetric means, one that doesn't try to match F-35 performance, but instead exploits the vulnerabilities in how modern air forces operate. That's what the Iron Eagle appears to be, and that's why it's causing such concern in defense circles. The technology powering the Iron Eagle tells us something even more significant about Iran's actual military industrial capacity. For years, we've been told that Iranian military technology is primitive, that their domestic defense industry is incapable of producing anything truly advanced. The Iron Eagle suggests that narrative was either deliberately misleading or catastrophically wrong. The level of systems integration required to make swarm coordination work, the materials science needed for the airframe, the software development for autonomous operation, these aren't things you can fake or cobble together from imported components. This represents genuine indigenous capability development, which means Iran has been investing heavily in areas Western intelligence either didn't detect or chose to downplay. Now, you might be wondering how a country under such severe sanctions managed to develop this kind of technology, and that's the question that should concern everyone. The answer appears to involve a combination of factors that paint a complex picture. First, Iranian engineers and scientists educated in Western universities before returning home. Second, technology transfer partnerships with countries like China and Russia that may have provided foundational knowledge without direct component supplies. Third, and perhaps most importantly, necessity driving innovation in ways that wealthy militaries with unlimited budgets often can't match. When you can't buy advanced weapons systems, you're forced to innovate, and Iran has apparently been doing exactly that while the world wasn't paying attention. The Sky Hunter designation itself reveals tactical doctrine that's worth examining. This isn't meant to be a deep penetration strike aircraft or a long-range bomber. The mission profile is specifically oriented toward defensive counter-air operations and denying aerial superiority to an attacker. In a potential conflict scenario involving Israel or the United States, Iran doesn't need to project power thousands of miles away. They need to make their own airspace so costly and dangerous to penetrate that attackers think twice. The Iron Eagle appears designed precisely for that mission, operating in defended airspace, coordinating with ground-based air defense systems, and creating a layered threat environment that modern air forces aren't optimized to handle. Let's talk about the artificial intelligence component, because this is where things get really concerning from a global security perspective. Multiple intelligence assessments mention AI-assisted targeting and decision-making capabilities within the Iron Eagle system. Now, autonomous weapons systems are already controversial, but when you're talking about platforms that can make engagement decisions without human oversight, you're entering genuinely dangerous territory. The question isn't just whether Iran has developed this capability, it's what happens when this technology inevitably proliferates to non-state actors or other regional powers. Iran has a documented history of transferring military technology to proxy forces throughout the Middle East. Imagine Hezbollah or Houthi rebels with access to AI-powered drone swarms. That's a nightmare scenario that keeps counterterrorism officials awake at night. The reaction from Israel has been telling, and this is where we start to see real-world strategic adjustments happening in response to the Iron Eagle revelation. Israeli defense officials have been unusually vocal about the need to neutralize this capability before it becomes operational. There have been reports of increased Israeli Air Force training exercises specifically focused on countering swarm drone tactics. Intelligence sources suggest Israel has already conducted at least 2 covert operations targeting facilities associated with the Iron Eagle program, though neither the Israeli government nor Iran has officially confirmed these incidents. What this tells us is that Israel views this as an existential threat requiring immediate action, not just another weapons system to monitor and counter through conventional means. American military planners are facing their own reckoning with the Iron Eagle's implications. The United States military has spent trillions of dollars developing 5th-generation fighters and advanced air combat capabilities based on certain assumptions about how future conflicts would unfold. Those assumptions are now being challenged by a weapons system that cost a fraction of an F-35 program, but could potentially neutralize some of those expensive platforms through electronic warfare and swarm tactics. This doesn't mean American air power is suddenly obsolete, but it does mean that the calculus for any military intervention in Iran just got significantly more complicated and costly. Now, here's something most coverage of this story is missing, and it's absolutely critical to understanding the broader implications. The Iron Eagle isn't just a military development, it's a political statement. Iran is demonstrating to the world that Western sanctions and isolation haven't crippled their capability to develop advanced weapons systems. They're showing regional rivals and potential allies that they can compete technologically despite being cut off from global markets. This has implications for how other sanctioned nations approach military development, how regional powers view the balance of power, and ultimately how effective economic warfare actually is in the 21st century. The technical specifications that have leaked provide some insight into what makes the Iron Eagle so capable, and these details are worth examining. Reports suggest the platform uses advanced composite materials that reduce radar cross-section significantly compared to traditional aircraft. The propulsion system appears to be optimized for endurance rather than speed, which makes sense for a defensive counter-air mission. Each unit reportedly carries sophisticated electronic warfare equipment capable of jamming, spoofing, and even potentially hijacking enemy aircraft systems through cyber attack vectors. The swarm coordination capability allows multiple units to operate as a networked system, sharing targeting data and adapting tactics in real time based on the battle space environment. What's particularly innovative about the Iron Eagle's design philosophy is how it leverages asymmetric advantages. Traditional air combat has been dominated by platforms optimized for speed, maneuverability, and weapon payload. The Iron Eagle appears to prioritize persistence, coordination, and electronic attack capability. In a contested airspace scenario, you don't necessarily need to outfly your opponent if you can blind their sensors, disrupt their communications, and force them to operate in a degraded information environment. That's exactly what this system seems designed to do, and it represents a genuinely different approach to aerial warfare that could influence how future combat systems are developed globally. The geopolitical ramifications extend far beyond just Iran and its immediate adversaries. Other nations watching this development are drawing their own conclusions about military technology development strategies. If Iran can achieve this level of capability under sanctions, what does that mean for other countries seeking to develop indigenous defense industries? We're likely to see increased investment in similar asymmetric capabilities by nations that can't compete dollar for dollar with American or Chinese military budgets. This could accelerate the proliferation of AI-powered autonomous weapon systems and fundamentally change the character of regional conflicts worldwide. There's also a cyber warfare dimension to the Iron Eagle that's getting insufficient attention. The electronic warfare capabilities reportedly include offensive cyber components that could target not just aircraft systems, but potentially ground-based command and control infrastructure. This blurs the line between aerial warfare and cyber warfare in ways that existing military doctrine doesn't adequately address. How do you classify an attack that physically damages nothing but renders your entire air defense network inoperable through electronic means? These are questions that military lawyers and strategists are grappling with as the Iron Eagle forces a reassessment of what air warfare actually means in the modern era. The timing of Iran's Iron Eagle revelation is also strategically significant and worth analyzing. This comes at a moment when regional tensions are already elevated, when American military focus is divided between multiple theaters, and when Israel is dealing with its own complex security challenges. Iran isn't revealing this capability randomly. They're sending a message about deterrence, about their ability to impose costs on any military action against them, and about their technological sophistication being far beyond what Western assessments have suggested. Whether this revelation makes conflict more or less likely is genuinely unclear, but it certainly changes the calculations on all sides. Now, let's address the skepticism that some analysts have expressed about Iranian claims regarding the Iron Eagle. It's absolutely fair to question whether the capabilities being advertised match reality. Iran has a history of exaggerating military achievements for domestic and international propaganda purposes. However, the difference with the Iron Eagle is the corroborating intelligence from multiple independent sources. When Israeli intelligence, American defense officials, and European analysts are all expressing concern about the same weapons system, that suggests there's substance behind the claims. The question isn't whether the Iron Eagle exists or has some capability, it's whether that capability matches the most ambitious claims being made about it. The economic aspect of Iran's ability to develop the Iron Eagle under sanctions deserves deeper examination. Estimates suggest the entire Iron Eagle program cost less than $2 billion to develop, a fraction of what comparable Western programs would require. This cost efficiency comes from several factors: lower labor costs, willingness to accept higher risk in testing and development, integration of commercially available technologies in innovative ways, and lack of the bureaucratic overhead that inflates Western defense spending. What this demonstrates is that effective military capability doesn't always correlate with defense spending levels, a lesson that should concern those who assume money alone guarantees military superiority. Looking at the broader trend in warfare technology, the Iron Eagle fits into a pattern we're seeing globally toward unmanned, networked, and AI-assisted combat systems. The future of warfare increasingly involves platforms that are cheaper, more expendable, and more numerous than traditional crewed aircraft. Iran appears to have recognized this trend early and invested accordingly. While Western nations were perfecting incredibly capable but expensive manned fighters, Iran was developing systems optimized for the actual combat environment they're likely to face. This represents smart strategic thinking rather than just making do with limited resources. The implications for future Middle Eastern conflicts are profound and concerning. Any potential military action against Iran now has to account for the Iron Eagle capability, degrading aerial operations. This doesn't make intervention impossible, but it makes it significantly more costly in terms of aircraft losses, mission success rates, and overall operational tempo for Israel considering strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. For example, the presence of an advanced counter-air system specifically designed to target attacking aircraft fundamentally changes mission planning and risk assessment. We may be entering an era where the conventional wisdom about Israeli or American ability to conduct decisive air campaigns in the region no longer holds true. There's also a psychological dimension to the Iron Eagle's impact that's worth considering. For decades, nations in the region have operated under the assumption that American and Israeli air power was essentially unstoppable. That assumption shaped diplomatic calculations, deterrence strategies, and regional power dynamics. The Iron Eagle challenges that assumption and could embolden actors who previously felt constrained by the threat of air strikes. Whether this leads to more aggressive regional behavior or simply creates more balanced deterrence relationships remains to be seen, but the psychological impact of breaking the myth of invulnerable Western air power shouldn't be underestimated. The intelligence failure aspect of this story is something that deserves serious scrutiny. How did Western intelligence agencies fail to detect or accurately assess Iran's progress on the Iron Eagle program? Were there warning signs that were missed or downplayed? Was there a systematic bias toward underestimating Iranian technological capability? These aren't just academic questions. Intelligence failures have consequences, and in this case, the consequence is that strategic planning for Middle Eastern contingencies was based on faulty assumptions about Iranian capabilities. There needs to be a serious reassessment of how we evaluate potential adversary military development, especially for nations operating under sanctions that limit intelligence collection opportunities. The technology transfer implications are perhaps the most concerning long-term aspect of the Iron Eagle revelation. Iran has consistently shared military technology with allied groups and nations. We've seen Iranian drones in the hands of Houthi rebels attacking Saudi infrastructure. We've seen Iranian missiles with Hezbollah in Lebanon. If the Iron Eagle technology proliferates in similar ways, we could see advanced counter-air capabilities spreading to non-state actors who previously had no ability to challenge air superiority. This would fundamentally change conflict dynamics in regions far beyond the Middle East and create new challenges for nations that rely on air power projection as a core military capability. So where does this leave us as we process the Iron Eagle revelation? We're facing a Middle East that's more complex and dangerous than the simplified narratives often presented in media coverage. We're seeing a demonstration that sanctions and isolation don't necessarily prevent technological advancement by determined adversaries. We're witnessing a shift in aerial warfare doctrine that could influence global military development for decades. And we're confronting the reality that assumptions about Western military superiority need constant reevaluation in a world where innovation can come from unexpected sources. The Iron Eagle Sky Hunter represents all of these trends converging in a single weapon system that nobody saw coming until it was too late to prevent. The question now isn't whether the Iron Eagle exists or has some capability. The question is what happens next. How will Israel and the United States respond to this capability? Will there be efforts to neutralize it through military action, cyber operations, or diplomatic pressure? Will other nations develop similar systems, leading to an arms race in autonomous counter-air capabilities? Will the proliferation of this technology create new conflict dynamics that existing international frameworks aren't equipped to manage? These are the questions that will shape Middle Eastern security for years to come, and the answers are far from clear. What is clear is that the Iron Eagle has changed the game, and anyone involved in defense policy military planning, or regional security analysis needs to understand what this system represents. It's not just another weapons platform. It's a statement about the changing nature of military power, about the limits of sanctions as a policy tool, about the dangers of underestimating adversaries, and about how technological innovation can shift strategic balances in unexpected ways. The world just got more complicated, more dangerous, and more unpredictable. And that Iron Eagle soaring through Iranian skies is a reminder that we ignore emerging threats at our own peril. Stay informed, stay critical, and stay alert. The developments we're seeing with Iran's Iron Eagle are just the beginning of a broader transformation in how warfare will be conducted in the coming decades. Make sure you're subscribed and notifications are turned on, because this story is far from over. The next chapter in Middle Eastern military dynamics is being written right now, and you don't want to miss what happens when the world finally wakes up to what Iran has actually accomplished. This is the kind of story that changes everything, and we'll be here covering every development as it unfolds. The Iron Eagle has been revealed, but the real shock is still to come.